Well, if I was to tell you back in January what I thought of August 2024, I would have said what I'm about to say now, because astrology is a divination tool, guys, and it is one hell of an intense mid-month of August. And while we may start off rolling along on a beautiful new moon in the sign of Leo on August the 5th, 4th, 5th, we're going to find that as we get to the middle of the month, we're going to see an incredibly intense and very challenging window of time that's going to propel us to take bold action. And we'll also see surprises, things we couldn't even anticipate coming up for each of us and the world at large. In this video today, which will be no longer than 1 hour, we're going to cover the world politics or mundane astrology, world astrology or mundane astrology, and a lot of it will be about the political situation as well as what's going on in the war between Israel and Gaza, particularly connected to Iran. We're also going to talk about your sign, and I encourage you to listen today for your sun, moon, and rising. I'm going to be focused today mostly on the Jupiter conjunction to Mars that we haven't seen in Gemini since 1989, and give you a few tips about how to use that best based on your rising sign, sun sign, and or moon sign. Try listening for all three and see what feels and fits the best. Now, one thing I would say about astrology, it's a divination tool. It's a forecasting tool. It helps you time your best life. Too bad kings of ancient days in Sumer, Babylonian, Egypt, and Persia, they did use astrologers. Too bad modern day politicians and governors and leaders of countries didn't have the same approach, minus Ronald Reagan and his wife, Nancy, because it would help. Because it's going to be a very difficult time and a very challenging time for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump and Joe Biden in the middle of August. And I'm about to tell you why. I'm also going to talk about the situation with Israel and Iran heating up this month and what that might look like based on the astrology. And we're also going to talk about a general vibe of what RFK might be up to, because I just did a video on him, all about him, and he's also getting some significant activation in the month of August that could begin to escalate his role in this upcoming election. So if you're new to my channel, welcome back. If you're a regular, welcome back. If you're new, welcome for the first time. My name is Lori Lothian, using the Western Tropical Zodiac and the whole sign house system. I love fixed stars, minor asteroids. Lately, you'll see in a lot of my videos, I have the asteroid America up and running, little triangle with an eyeball in it, because of course, we're talking a lot in the build up to an election about American politics. When it's your country's turn, like mine, Canada, I cover Canadian elections. I am not an American. I do not vote in America. I am not Republican. I am not Democratic. In my own country, I guess I'd be a centrist, and I haven't voted here ever in my 62 years. I'm trying to share with you, this is about astrology, not politics. If I do have opinions, I will try my best to keep them out of the astrology. So, number one, back in July, to show you how astrology works, and even before that, back in February, March, I made some predictions. And the predictions I made were based on astrology. I want to just recap that, because Donald Trump in harm's way, including the potential for an assassination attempt, was clearly in the sky. And it was delineated by me very specifically in my Venus and Leo video, all signs that came out in the first week of July 5th or so. And maybe around July 9th, and July 11th or so, I had the Uranus conjunct Mars video that also said specifically he was in harm's way for perhaps being assassinated a week before or after July the 15th. Now, the other thing I would say is I also been saying during the July videos that Biden will step down. Biden will step down. And I explained the astrology of why. So this point of this is astrology, step away, step down, whatever you want to call it. Astrology works. I would like to gently remind you that 1968 is the year we're reliving. We are like, the Groundhog Day, back to the, wake up and repeat that movie about being in a time loop. Well, astrology sometimes has time loops. They don't repeat perfectly, but they repeat in a lot of ways. History repeats itself. And basically the cycle we're repeating is what happened during the 1968 Vietnam War, protests by students and sit-ins in colleges and campuses, the assassination of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy Sr., and we had assassination attempts, we had student sit-ins, and what's also repeating is the president who's seeking a second term stepping down from the ticket before the actual election in November. And in that 1968, Lyndon Baines Johnson did the very same thing that Biden did, ostensibly for a heart challenge, ostensibly because of his low ratings over his running of the Vietnam War. Well, Biden health, Biden Gaza war, repeat, rinse, repeat. And basically, when that happened, it happened again really close to the freaking election. It was like it was April 1st, maybe, or March 30th that Lyndon Baines Johnson said, I'm out of here. And he passed the torch to his vice president. And here we see Kamala now having the torch that Joe has relinquished to her. So these cycles do repeat. And I did predict many things, including Biden stepping down. Any astrologer could have done it because we were in that repeat cycle. Now, as we approach August, we're going to see some intensity in the sky for Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, Joe Biden. 1, 2, 3. The middle of the month is hitting them all in very challenging and difficult ways. And we may expect the following themes to emerge in the middle of August. And I will be doing your sign as well, I promise. We will see perhaps Joe Biden's health have some kind of radical decline. I've been saying in multiple places and times here on YouTube land that I'm not sure he will make it physically, his life force energy, till the end of this year. Now, you're going to subscribe. Go ahead. I'm not cursing him. I'm looking at his astrology. And the reason, multiple reasons, the eclipse to his moon last October 28, Pluto square his moon, which is your life force and prana and energy to be alive, the breath of life, Pluto solar arc opposite his moon, and then the things that are occurring as well this month, So we want to note the challenges here. That Algol, Mars-Uranus conjunction, squaring Donald Trump's ascendant Mars, while asteroid Medusa and Angel transited through Donald Trump's first house, was why the assassination attempt may happen. But that same conjunction of Mars and Uranus on malefic and difficult, off with your head, decapitating fixed star, Algol, was also exactly opposite Joe Biden's sun at 27 degrees of Scorpio in his 12th house of hospitals, isolation, and hidden things. From his 6th house of health and sickness matters. And so what that particular conjunction of those planets, Uranus and Mars on fixed star Algol, did for Trump was threaten his life by a shooter. What it did for Joe Biden was have him lose his head, step away from his role to be the leader of the free world. So, but he's still having some intensity in this month ahead. I'll explain why. That look like, again, another kerfuffle where he may actually be stepping down, maybe from the presidency. And that would make Kamala not just the nominee for the ballot, but also the acting president. So there is that story. We're going to also mention one more thing about Israel and Iran and the stories that are going on. On my day of recording, July the 31st, we have found out that, and I do encourage you to go to your All Signs Deep Dive video that I have already put out, a good 30 minutes for your sign about the month ahead. Those have been out for a week. Please watch that. But anyway, back to square one. They just assassinated the chief of the Hamas leader, chief guy. And that happened by getting him in Tehran, the major city of Iran. Now, it's not a surprise something like this is happening right now, because back in April, we saw the conjunction of two planets. We saw the conjunction of Mars with Saturn in the sign of Pisces. And that was when the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, car bombed that chief's car full of 3 sons and I think 4 grandchildren as they were leaving a residential property for some kind of celebration, the Palestinian end of a fast or Ramadan or something back in April. Now, that happened under the energy of Mars, war, shooting, violence, Saturn, constrictions. And it happened to occur on a cycle where we're seeing now, as I speak, July the 31st, Mars moving into his opening square to Saturn. From the conjunction in Pisces, we're now seeing Mars squaring Saturn And that is the opening square, the waxing square, taking what happened in April further, the next chapter, right? The next development. So there is the assassination not of his family, but of this character himself. This is going to escalate the tensions between the nation of Iran. When I use that Leo rising constitution signing of the Republic of Iran from 1979, Leo rising, we're going to see a lot of energy going into the chart of Iran from the square of Mars from Gemini to Saturn and Pisces that look like revenge. And it is not a good month for Israel because, you know, Israel is a Libra rising and its descendant is Aries, right? And we're having eclipses in the sign of Aries since April of 23, indicating intensity in the house of its open enemies, adversaries, opponents, people that they look to as their enemy. And those eclipses are germinating a ton of enemies: Hezbollah, Houthis, Iran, Hamas, for the nation of Israel. And at this, I believe at the time of my recording on July 31st, there is a news story I read recently that Egypt is now amassing troops on the Rafah border from its side. So there's a sense of the generation and germination of destined enemies for the nation of Israel. I've covered a lot about Israel when it has eclipses, South Node eclipses through its first house, South Node eclipse on its ascendant was occurring just at the time that the Hamas incursion into Israel happened and those deaths happened. So we see that this cycle does repeat itself on a predictable way through all of the history of the modern day Israel formed in 1948, that when eclipses are occurring in the Aries Libra axis of his chart, we see developments with war and neighbors. It's always the case. So it's just astrology. Okay, let's go ahead and break it down a little bit. Also, I would mention to you back in April of 2023, when Mars and Saturn co-joined in Pisces. Back then, we also saw Joe Biden coming out in the news cycle and saying that Netanyahu's approach to the war in Gaza is a mistake. Now, that was a shock at the time that Biden had said anything negative about the situation. But given that Biden's still around, we may expect, as this square is approaching, for him to say something again dismissive or critical or corrective of Israel's actions. And of course, with Kamala Harris in the next in line seat, if he steps down for health reasons, steps down from his position as president, and she steps up, it may be her making those assessments and statements as we approach the middle of August. And the Democratic National Convention, it looks like a real mess. Okay, let me show you the sky and let's get talking about it for the world and for you. And if you want to know about the topics, I will have my sister timestamp this for you, and you will be able to go to your timestamps, but also to the timestamps for your sign by looking in the pinned comment in the description box or by hitting the chapters button, which is to click the title of the video. By the way, I'm teaching my Sky Reader class in the fall, 6 weeks of live classes with me to be your own astrologer, time your best life. If that kind of learning interests you, evergreen, forever access to the course after it's done. Missed class is no big deal. You get the replay, etc. Facebook group, weekly coaching calls. It's very high touch. Come check it out. And in the description box below, you can learn about the course, but you can't sign up yet, but you can get on the wait list for when the tuition cart opens sometime at the end of August. Now let's look at this sky. I've just pinned the sky. I've just pinned the sky to Aries, all right, so that we can keep things steady. I will just briefly say that I'm not going to go back to show you the Leo full moon. Well, some of you like to see it. We're going to cover the Leo full moon. We're going to look at the Mercury cazimi, and we're going to look at the T-square between Saturn and Venus and Jupiter, as well as the Jupiter conjunction to Mars. And we're also going to take a peek at the full moon in the sign of Aquarius, which is square Uranus, which will bring some shock and awe at the end of this month, not necessarily on the day of the Capricorn moon, which it could be. I think that's right there on the 19th of August, but also in the couple of weeks that follow. It bakes in a longer story, even in the 6 months that follow. So in this sky here, we can see, I'm going to bring us back to the beginning of the month, just because some of you are astrological types and we can see what's going on around the moon on the 4th. Oh, well, it would be helpful if I wasn't moving our chart by month. And let's try that again, right? Let's get by into the months, not the, there we go. All right, so we'll go back to the beginning of the month and around August the 4th, 5th, right? Doesn't really matter how correct I am, but it is August the 4th. Let's go back a day. There's a new moon in the sign of Leo. And this new moon in the sign of Leo, I'm not going to cue it to perfection, right? It's a new start, a fresh start in the part of your whole sign sky that represents Leo. It's a whole house and a whole sign. So for me, it's my 7th house of marriage. And that is because I'm an Aquarius rising. But what I like about it a lot is it's flowing to this Mars and it's flowing to this Jupiter, which will become that conjunction around the 14th of August and reset a new synodic cycle of Mars and Jupiter together. And that gives us a new 2-year forecast for each of our lives. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So it has support from benefic Jupiter and from Mars in Gemini, which gives it a flavor of positivity and gives it an element of something good is trying to happen here. Now, one of the things I would also say about it, just ignore the midheaven and all that IC stuff. That's going to be there later when I show the charts of well-known people like Donald Trump. But what I would also note about a new moon in Leo, every new moon in Leo is literally about a fresh start where you can have courage, heart, daring, bold leadership energies. And at the time of the moon itself, Venus is actually still in the sign of Leo at 29 degrees, which is Regulus. What is Regulus? It's the fixed star that's all about, I didn't mean to go weak. It's the fixed star that's all about power and kingship and leadership and riches and it's even fame. Donald Trump has that star Regulus on his ascendant, but it's the heart of the lion. And the heart of the lion is actively participating in a new moon in Leo. Find your lion heart, basically. This is going to be good for Trump. It's a new moon on his ascendant. It gives him positive outcomes in not only in the 2 weeks after the August 4th moon, but in the 6 months after this moon until we have a full moon in Leo. It trumps up Trump and gives him strength. End of story. So we have that lunation. I have my new moon in Leo video already out. So go watch it on my channel. I cover your sign in that video. There's a lot going on in the month ahead. We're going to jump to what is not the teeny tiny stories, which are in your 90-minute all signs video, or 30-minute all signs videos, one for each sign on my channel. I do monthly individual videos. They're already out. Go watch your sign if you like. Moving forward by a couple of weeks, this is where things get pretty intense. We're going to start off with a synodic cycle delineation here first. It will be around the 14th of August right here that we'll see a 16-degree Jupiter and a 16-degree Mars. If I was to cue it to the exact moment, let's do that and move it by hours. You're going to see that this is a story when two planets return to a conversation with each other and they're becoming one. So Jupiter is wisdom and truth, and sometimes justice and hope and optimism and prosperity and bounty and expansion. And Mars is, choosing, deciding, and war and conflict, and also noble hero. Now, this is a good combination for bold confidence, super ambition. This is the kind of person who rushes into the fire to save someone. This is a heroic archetype as well, commander in chief as well. So we don't mind it. It's actually going to be often quite a good feeling for each of us. But it is also embedded in a conversation of challenge that is going to put it in Saturnian square, right? Oh no, a square to Saturn and a square to Venus. Let's make this a little bit more simple and let's just look at that as a T-square in formation. What is a T-square for other than to make us feel like things are pretty intense? We're going to leave Venus, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars. We're just going to clean the sky up. So it makes it much easier for you to see for now. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, get all that clutter out of there. There we go. All right, T-square for me. So bottom line, really, is that Jupiter and Mars would be doing just fine for the world as a reset button around justice and peace and wisdom and truth and war between Gemini, warring brothers and warring neighbors. So yes, Ukraine, yes, Israel. Those are two, or civil war, Sudan. Civil wars displaced 8 million people in Sudan. So those places where civil wars, wars between brothers, wars between neighbors is occurring could have the potential for some positive new shift because of this conjunction, which unfolds over 2 years, but also is acutely happening in August on the 14th. And in your own life, this last happened in Gemini 1989. We're going to cover how you might harness that by your sign, but very briefly, right? Just a little touch point for your sign. This is a particularly intense square in the sense that this square to Saturn, in the sense that it is, as I mentioned earlier, the opening square for the time when Mars was with Saturn in April. And we saw this Arizona Supreme Court ruling reinstating an 1864 abortion ban. Seriously, we saw Biden tell Netanyahu he's making mistakes, doing the war all wrong. We saw the Hamas chief's children and grandchildren slaughtered in a car bomb. Well, and since then, many other members of his family have been targeted and killed by Hamas. Now he's dead as well. This opening square is going to look like a combination of factors. There was a lot of tension going on in the real world between Iran and Israel during April of 2023. And this tension is definitely on the way back. And Saturn square is bringing that sense of boundaries, walls, constraint around water. What is water? It's the Red Sea. It's the Mediterranean Sea, if we talk about Israel, and ways and means by which, by acts of revenge, Iran may begin to inhibit sea travel or embargo the sea or block the sea or hyper fund the Houthis in the Red Sea. I am not sure which it will be, but just because Saturn is in the place of seas and water, I think, in my humble opinion, it may look a lot like a problem at sea that is going to be caused by Iran or its proxies for the nation of Israel. But the world at large is at threat from this escalating into a global conflagration. And that is a statement of the obvious, right? Everyone can see that. It doesn't take, a genius. On the evening of the 13th of April, Iran launched that drone and missile strike on Israel and targeted, among other things, the Golan Heights area and 2 air bases in the Negev Desert. Once again, it could be Iran will recapitulate the actions that happened from the conjunction of Saturn and Mars in the sign of Pisces and do it all over again. Now here we go, another retaliatory strike in the opening square. Well, when would it happen? Probably the middle of August, when the sky is the most intense. The United States got into the mix, as well as England, and rushed to defend Israel from those strikes. It is possible, because the cycles repeat, that the United States will rush in and get into the mix to help defend Israel. My concern is that there will be revenge energy moving towards the United States for its participation in the war crimes / obliteration of infrastructure / death of many children and civilians in Gaza. And therefore, the United States is also moving into harm's way, not just this August, but in the months that follow this Capricorn moon that I'll be talking about in a minute. Now, back to the general story for a second. Let's finish up with this war story here, right? Using the Iran chart with the Leo rising coming from 1979 and the new republic and the constitution, etc., what we can say is that because it is a Leo rising country, then this energy here is happening in the nation of Iran's 11th house, its allies and benefactors. So the Houthis can be an ally, a benefactor, not necessarily, but an ally. So can Hezbollah, so can any country that allies with the values of Iran as a religious, theocratic nation. I'll tell you an interesting thing, that the nation of Iran has its sun in the 9th house of religion, meaning religious leader. No surprise at all. But that sun is in Aries, and that Aries sun the religious and leader energy of the nation of Iran is actually in the seventh house of open enemies for the nation of Israel. And the rising degree or ascendant of the nation of Israel is on Pluto, the god of death, in the third house of the nation of Iran. These two could become Plutonian in the battle for their values, their land, their supremacy, whatever, and that indicates nuclear armaments. And the biggest worry I would have based on the sky chart between these two nations is a nuclear exchange. So let's hope not, but I'm just saying what it could potentially lead to if we can't de-escalate this whole thing, or the wise men and women of politics who don't consult astrologers are not involved. This energy here, okay, this energy here, squaring this energy here, is indicating this is Pisces, right? This is a house of mass destruction, because a Leo rising nation of Iran has a seventh house in Aquarius, where Pluto is. Death to the enemies or death from the enemies? Question mark. Aquarius, full moon at 27 degrees of Aquarius in the house of Iran's open enemies, coming up around the 19th of August, is daunting. But more importantly, this is a house of mass destruction. In a nation's chart, your eighth house placement can look like tidal waves, floods, and mass destruction events, death en masse, death of the masses. The beliefs of the masses can be here as well. And so that would indicate a potential harm's way story from the opening square, here. So that makes me concerned, because ultimately Iran is, yes, well equipped, but so is Israel and its backers. You know, my opinion probably doesn't matter, but Israel's usually conducted warfare through assassination, which is, its MO. This is the thing in Gaza is not the normal MO for the nation of Israel. So the decimation of the entire infrastructure, the health infrastructure, the educational infrastructure, the mosques, the desecration of the cemeteries, the ruination of the highways, means that the Gaza Strip is now no longer habitable, right? Not habitable. So that's not the MO of Israel in the past, right? Even if they may have wanted to, say, propel the Palestinian people out from the Strip and make the place a place that is they're not able to live in. This is the first time that this has happened. And I know that this is a very right-wing Zionist religious faction of government ruling the nation of Israel. But a lot of pundits are saying Israel has put itself in tremendous harm's way as a viable, lasting nation state in the Middle East. Do I have an opinion about that? No, I'm repeating what I've been reading by scholars, okay? By literally Middle East scholars. So the part I want to talk about just briefly about the middle of August and the astrology, well, it also puts Iran in harm's way. And there, by the way, is asteroid America, middle of August, in the house of open enemies for the nation of Iran. Don't forget, it is a Leo rising. And Pluto, right? Pluto, USA, in the house of open enemies. Does that mean death from America or death to America? I don't know. But it is daunting. But I also want to just say one more thing about the Middle East story, and then we'll move on to the political problems in the middle of the month during the Democratic National Convention. Israel is here. It is a Libra rising, and it is the house of open enemies here, right? Well, October the 2nd, there will be a solar eclipse at 10 degrees of Libra in the house of Israel, in the sign that represents its identity. And that eclipse, although it is in October, backwashes energetically all through the month of September. And so we see the nation of Israel coming in to an eclipse turbulence as we approach, as the world approaches this fall. The same kind of turbulence that happened in the fall of 2023 with the Libra solar eclipse right on its ascendant. And while this is not right on its ascendant, it is in the co-present place of the nation of Israel's ascendant. So Israel can have a loss, a south node, because the eclipse is on its ascendant. Finally, Netanyahu belongs to the ninth house. He is a Sag rising, as is Joe Biden, as is the United States of America. And this is Netanyahu's rising place up here. Across from his rising place as a person and leader of a country in the house of Netanyahu's Gemini open enemies, the United States of America's open enemies, Biden's open enemies, is a Jupiter Mars conjunction, T squaring Saturn, squaring Venus, creating a T square. So for this very reason, the middle of August, from the 14th to the 20th, puts the following people in very challenging, difficult situations. And I'll delineate that now. For Netanyahu, Joe Biden, and the United States of America, the Sagittarius risings, there is a huge energy coming from an oppositional force that is strong, sharp swords and weapons, Mars, Jupiter, bigger and larger, squaring the house of land, home, and property. So the nation property, the home property, Netanyahu's homeland, and also squaring Saturn in the house of governing leadership energies for Biden, for Netanyahu, and from the nation of the United States. When it comes to the election in the United States, Kamala Harris is sitting with her Venus conjunct this Venus in the 12th house of her chart of backroom deals and secret negotiations. I would probably sense that it may look like some backroom deals and negotiations precipitating very strongly during just before, during, and maybe after the Democratic National Convention that influenced Kamala Harris in a very big way. She is a Gemini rising. She gets the Jupiter-Mars energy on her ascendant place, not on her ascendant directly, but it's influencing her there. Possibly what we're going to see here, backroom deals and negotiations from her Libra sun, but from her Gemini rising ascendant. This is her Venus in her 4th house. And the 4th house can look a lot like matters to do. Sorry, I got to revise that because I need to get rid of this mess. Let me just say that all over again. Let me get rid of this hot annotation mess. Let me repeat myself by having that mess out of my way. Okay. Biden, Netanyahu, United States, 10th house of all of them, 4th house of all of them, enemies of all of them, T square. Boom. They're in a crosshairs of this intense energy from their rising place, from their descendant place, from their 4th house, and their 10th house. That's the Biden Netanyahu USA problem. All right. So a lot of intensity going on in the middle of the month, shaking everybody up. End of story. And from a Libra sun, which is what Kamala is, it's the 12th house from the Libra sun. Sun represents career and leadership. So she may be in backroom deals and negotiations around middle of August regarding situations to do with Joe Biden. I'm going to say Joe Biden because it squares Joe Biden here, right? Mr. Joe Biden is a Sag rising around 9 degrees of Sagittarius. The other thing that's going on here is Kamala Harris is a 24-degree Gemini rising. And I already mentioned this, Trump is a 22 degrees Gemini sun, and they both have the benefits of a Jupiter approaching their sun for leadership, Trump, and also just good things happening, lucky things happening to Kamala Harris with her 24 Gemini rising. But unfortunately, there's a refrainment. In October, Jupiter will retrograde before reaching Kamala Harris's ascendant and before reaching Donald Trump's sun, retrograding at 21 degrees, far closer to 22 degrees sun for Donald Trump, but not quite, close but not quite. I predict this is a refrainment because the coronation of Biden or Harris, saying they're both still in the race, and I think Harris will be in the race, means that they're not going to, neither one will win. And in my RFK video, I wonder if he is going to be a spoiler, take away the votes, confuse a swing state down to the line where they have to do a hanging Chad, Gore Bush recount. This kind of chaos is happening during the election. And so there is not a known, I don't think, known winner. or there is a known winner and it's contested this November the 5th. But why I bring this up now is that you can see that her ascendant, with this conjunction near her ascendant, also opens up an incredible, intense turning point, challenge, difficulty, crisis moment of square oppositional energies for her in relationship to 4th house, 10th house matters, her domestic private life and her secret love stories, right? What's going on with that Venus and Virgo down here in the sky at the time of this particular T-square? Like if I'm to put her chart over this chart, I hope I have it handy. I'll put it there for you to see. She's in some kind of crosshairs moment. It's intense. It is like really intense. And as for Donald Trump, because I'll do whole videos on this as we get going, a lot of this energy of the 27-degree Capricorn square Uranus full moon is going to be opposite his 26-degree Mars and opposite his 29-degree ascendant, with a Mercury cazimi on his Mars. And this is like, whoa, big turmoil for Trump. I think Trump will change his mind and not have Vance as his running mate as a result of the mid-August sky. That's my prediction. But when it comes to Kamala Harris, I am trying to figure it out because I would love your feedback here. I'm going to show you her chart over the sky during the DNC timeframe and just before, and see if you can't give me some tips. And then we'll go ahead and do your own sign and talk about what may be happening in your world as you reset something to do with Jupiter and Mars in Gemini, last seen in your sky in 1989, based on most accurate your rising, maybe secondarily your sun, and then of course you can still listen for your moon. So let me pull up Kamala's chart over the sky, or I could do it either way. I could put her in the middle and the sky around her. Okay, so we're looking at Kamala Harris's chart. I think I just had my recording completely going while I made tea, and I've got to edit that out now. Eek. Kamala Harris is going to be the chart in the middle, and we're just going to take a quick look at how that DNC convention thing looks for her. This is just some of her chart. I can put her ascendant back in there. That's a problem when you're using software to go back and forth between storylines, guys. So much going on. Let's put her ascendant, descendant, midheaven, IC, vertex axis in, lot of fortune. Good old Kamala is by herself again, and we're going to come back to the chart. You see it, I don't. There we go. So this is Kamala Harris, and Jupiter is refraining from meeting up with her ascendant, just reminding you of that. Her Jupiter, by the way, at 24 degrees of Taurus is opposite Joe Biden's sun. I just find that fascinating, given that she's now the one in charge, or will be, maybe. So here we have her chart, and this is what it looks like. Not Iran. I meant to tell you something about Iran that I forgot to mention. So let me just do it right now. Recently used. Oh my God. Yeah, I need an editor to help me so I can make this thing a little more digestible for you guys. But anyway, Iran has its nodes of fate, right? It's north node and south node on the axis of the angles of this intense T-square in our current sky this August. So we know that Iran is involved. This is Iran 17 degrees where Saturn is sitting in our real-time sky vibe. South node, Saturn moving towards its south node retrograde. This is where we have in Virgo, Venus, and this is in the real-time sky. We're going to have the energy of Saturn and Venus in a T-square to Jupiter up here in the 11th house, and also Mars. So again, the 8th house is difficult. It's that mass destruction, loss of life en masse in a country. That's very daunting, to say the least. So we will see where this takes us in the next middle of August, at a couple of weeks, what happens with that. Then we had Kamala Harris up here, and I was going to take a look at the actual sky, recently used transits. And here we have August 19th or so, DNC convention in the middle of the month. Will they oust her? Will there be a competition like in 1968 where Hubert Humphreys had to was supposed to compete against others? I think Robert Kennedy was assassinated before that because, he was going to be competing for the ticket. Well, now we have RFK trying to distract the Democratic ticket away from Biden and from Trump. So you got a lot going on. This again, rinse and repeat. He's doing what his father did And his father got killed for doing it. And there's a lot of theories about what happened for real to Robert Kennedy. He was trying to investigate his brother John Kennedy's death and wanted to be in power in order to find out what really happened, because of course everyone seems to know at this point that it was a CIA inside job. But anyway, if you don't know that yet, then well, you're not awake. But here we have Kamala Harris in the middle, and we have the outside wheel around it. And this is the sky at the time that we're all talking about. And you can see here that it is for Kamala Harris an extremely intense window of time where we're going to see that Mars and Jupiter approaching her ascendant, but not quite there, right? Not quite there, but also in a square, applying square to where this Venus is sitting down at the bottom of the sky. This is more 17-degree Venus. Day before, right? I can just move us a day before for that intensity to be obvious to you. On her natal Venus, in her fourth house of home, private life, things the public doesn't see about her, conjunct Pluto. I mean, a Venus-Pluto conjunction in the fourth house can suggest sexual trauma or inappropriate sexual stories from her childhood. I mean, it can. I'm not going to diagnose a public figure here, but there is something going on here to do with dark forces of Pluto and Venus. The harder aspects there are quite often to do with forbidden stories and toxic stories around sexuality and love, but it's in the house of her childhood. And what I'm trying to say is something is being activated that's hidden from the public view about her and her Venus, romantic, love, sexual life, that's hidden from view, perhaps, may not be that. And at the same time, we see Saturn at the top of the sky, which represents public leadership, being, in a place of public leadership, being ascending to the top of the sky, to be seen at the high part of the sky, high noon. And there's her chironic wound on her midheaven. The chironic wound is being reactivated by Saturn. Wounds to her reputation is basically it. And Saturn is moving toward that Chiron as Saturn is retrograding. And so it looks like she may sustain a wound to her reputation, for example, maybe to do with dirty secrets coming out by the Republican Party about her sex life or inappropriate sexual behaviors or something weird like that. But don't forget, Joe's also in trouble. Joe Biden is in harm's way in the middle of the month as well. And I'm not going to go back into Joe's chart right now, but for many reasons, he's really also trying to figure out whether or not he's going to be, or someone's trying to figure out for him, whether or not he's going to stick around and still run the country. Maybe if there was a major conflagration in the Middle East between Israel and Iran, he might get up on the stage and say something that everyone is shocked by, like the Democratic National Convention, and maybe there'll be pressure from the Republican Party to force the 25th Amendment on him, only because if there is this almost like global war that's about to start and he gets up and says something completely, not in his right mind or not very on his game, there may be concerns that he's not fit as the commander in chief, so to speak, to run the whole, U.S. response to what's going on with Iran, Hezbollah, Houthis, and or Israel, or even at this point, Egypt. All right. Just thoughts, guys. And anything else I'd say about it for Kamala Harris? In Kamala's chart, one of the things that it does say that she could be a great vice president is Saturn in the hand of the king ninth house, right? I mean, she didn't turn out to be a great vice president in some people's books. She didn't do anything at the border, but she's got like kind of a strong Saturn for being the second in command. And she doesn't really have any royal stars or any powerful stars like Donald Trump. And a lot of times world leaders will be really star-studded charts full of, Regulus or Aldebaran or Antares. And she doesn't really have any of those stars either. She doesn't look very much like the type of person who's going to be a candidate for the presidency. That's all I'm saying. And this, Uranus, Mars, Algol conjunction, pretty close to her natal Jupiter in the 12th house. Again, what things are hidden behind the scenes that may be erupting. And when we have that Capricorn, Capricorn, Aquarius 27-degree full moon happening as well. It'll be up here. It's going to also 27 degrees. It's also going to square Jupiter, square Uranus, and it's going to bring some kind of, perhaps maybe something to do with things to do with ninth house matters, justices, legal matters, basically, and secrets and hidden variables out as well. She's just in a really crunchy time during the middle of August, and so will Biden be, and so will Trump be. Trump is doing the best of all of them, basically. All right. And everyone else is really clutching their handkerchiefs. Now let's go ahead and do the all signs. We're going to move away from and RFK. So RFK's chart, he's also a Leo rising, as is Donald Trump, right? And Donald Trump and Leo rising and RFK and Leo rising are getting some generating energies in the sky that is similar for both of them. Now, because of the retrogradation of Mercury back to 21 Leo, that could indicate Trump changing his mind about who his running mate is, for example. But it doesn't really reach RFK's 2-degree or so Leo rising. So I don't think it's anything like that for him this summer. The Leo retrograde is the entire month of August, including the middle of the month. So that's probably not what's happening there. But in essence, I did a whole video on RFK and what it might be for him to be in this election, whether he's a candidate or a disruptor or a spoiler. So that video is coming up perhaps shortly after this. So stay tuned for that deep dive, hour-plus long look at the layers of RFK's natal chart and what his role in the upcoming election may be. Alrighty, so anything else I want to say about RFK? I think I'll just put his chart in there because I had a note to file about him that I wanted to share him with you guys. I don't remember why. So Robert Kennedy Jr., here he is. And that's his natal chart in the inside wheel. So this conjunction of, Jupiter and Mars on his natal Jupiter is positive, right? He's having a Jupiter return in 3 parts this year because of the retrograde of Jupiter. And this is going to give him great strength in public appeal, to be a movement maker, to, be high in the sky, to receive benefits and allies, benefactors and allies who want to help him, backers, people who want to support what he's doing. It's a really good time for him as we approach an election, and he's acting as a spoiler or hoping to be actually elected, which would be amazingly kind of so crazy in a 2-party system. So that's to his benefit, and that looks really good. But then there is the square to Venus and the opposition to Saturn, and so then he's got this constriction and this friction going on at the same time. In the middle of the month, things look really good for him, and it's Venus in the 2nd house, which is a financing house for him, also his speech, which is encumbered, as we all know, and with his throat, and also Saturn in the 8th house. Now, he's an individual, not a nation. So your 8th house is often things that are hidden, some secrets, maybe financial matters. This is a whole financial axis of the chart. And maybe he's running into financial matters in his campaign, but he still has so much support from big backers over here, or people who want to help him, including his running mate, who's a philanthropist, the woman, Shanahan. So yeah, I think she's a Sag rising after looking at her history, by the way, which is an interesting, yet again, Biden, Sag rising, Kamala, Gemini rising. These are people on the axis of the United States Sibley charts story. And the United States Sibley chart, one more thing. No, I'll save that. Okay, we're done. We're going to all signs. Let's get ready. Don't forget, if you like all sign content too, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you like this kind of content where I talk about world events through the lens of astrology, because it is a predictive tool forecasting the future, giving us a heads up of what may be coming, go for it. That CrowdStrike thing where all the internet went down, that's classic Mars conjunct Uranus. It's classic, especially in Gemini, a sign that has to do with communications and technologies. So this stuff does work. This stuff is very easy to see, but not always to perfectly predict. So we're going to start off with Aries, and we're going to run through to the end of the sign. The point of what we're doing today is we're going to cover how Jupiter coming together in the sign of Gemini with Mars last happened in 1989, and it may be a part of your story, and rinse repeat, where you're going to begin some new directions of bold, ambitious confidence and excitement in the Gemini part of your sky in a way that is redolent of, reflective of, reminiscent of, or similar to 1989. Every Jupiter-Mars conjunction runs 2 years. Therefore, you just don't go, oh, Jupiter-Mars conjunct in Gemini. It does nothing happen, Lori, on, the 14th of August. No, it's a synodic cycle that resets a 2-year narrative. So when I talk about 1989, I want you to go, oh, what happened in summer of 89 to summer of 1992, right? August of 89 to August of 1989, 90, 91. So 89 to 91, those 2 years are what we're talking about. So let's get rolling and start with the Aries, of course, and we'll get started in the sky here. We don't need Kamala in here or Robert Kennedy. We're just going to put the transit chart in. And Aries, and we'll start with you. So, and I'll just clear out everything else maybe. I don't know how much you guys want the clutter, but I'll clear some of the clutter out. We don't need the ascendant midheaven, and we don't need any of that stuff. So we're going to talk about how seeing these two planets come together in the sign of Gemini will be a experience that you haven't had since 1989, and therefore it is important because every 2 years will Jupiter and Mars do come together in different signs. It's sometimes not that frequent, depends on the cycle, that it comes together in one of the 12 signs. So since 1989 Aries, since 1989 Aries, you have not seen, since 89 to 91, you have not been under the influence of this cycle. You have a big reset button in the house of writing, journalism, media, periodicals, social media, online world, short distance travel, and relationship to siblings, or just travel in general. Also skills-based learning and teaching. Reset button, it will last 2 years. I'm not going to complicate this with all of the other pieces of the sky unless I feel called to say something to you. Mars is the Lord of your chart. It is his reset button for you. I am an Aries sun. I can tell you that between 1989 and 1991, I was writing a novel. And I also was traveling quite a bit. And in 1989, I went to Hungary and the Berlin Wall involved some travel. But mostly for me, it involved writing. And this is a writing house. So writing and learning and teaching and siblings and travel and local neighborhood things and marketing and selling, if it's something you do, are all getting a huge boost. That if you're old enough to remember 1989 to 91, August to August, you may be able to make comparisons. Nothing is ever exactly the same. Planets move around and are in different places in the sky. So keep that in mind as well. I'm going to do a whole video separately on this where I'm going to bring in the meaning of the T-square, but this is just an overview for the month. And when we get closer to the actual event, I will be doing an in-depth deep dive, including some asteroids that are involved. Now, the only thing I want to say about this for you as a general theme is that you're going to be bold, confident, ambitious, aggressive, excited, lucky, and successful in the decisions and actions you take in third house matters. And certainly that includes writing, online, etc. But also this can be about a sibling. This is your younger sibling, one under you. And that sibling may also have major shifts in their life because of this T-square, of course, to Venus in the house of health matters and Saturn in the house of hospitals. The constraining factor for a sibling can be health challenges. For you in general, it could indicate lots of travel to foreign lands, and it could also indicate work and travel related things that are integrated, traveling for work, writing at a distance, going to writers' retreats, traveling for your work is basically somehow maybe embedded in this narrative because of Venus in the 6th house. And so a lot of you may journey far abroad and connected you to travel, communications, and projects and things you do in the online world over the next 2 months. Honestly, with Saturn here, Mars here, Venus here, some of you may temporarily reside abroad, maybe for some kind of work-related, communications-related project. This makes me think digital nomad, really. Some of you may even do that, especially with Uranus in the earnings house. We're moving on to the Taurus story. I just have to get this thing all queued out of the wrong house system to move the chart forward. Oh my God. I'm on it. Okay. Now we'll go back to where we started and move us forward by an hour, and we'll roll through the sky. Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising, you have to go back to August of 1989, add 2 years to 1991 to kind of remember the vibe if you were old enough to do that. You're having a reset of some kind of bold ambition, directionality, brave decisions, a confidence and success in your second house of financial earnings. And if you're not old enough to remember that because you weren't old enough to make money, then it could have been a time of massive change in your dietary style, more bold and courageous speech, or a time in which you were acquiring some kind of facial shift, maybe changing the way you look facially. But all said and done, we're not talking about an event. We're talking about a broad feeling of what it was like to be August of 89 to 91. And if you haven't had it yet, then welcome to this new story, because this is going to give you a crazy ass uptick in your financial well-being through your career path because of the flow to Pluto, which will be there for a while. So you're going to really level up in your earnings, career, reputation, money, power, resources way. And you will find that even though that's true, you still have to look more seriously at matters that connect you to some kind of constraint in your larger groups of friends and issues to do with your romantic life that are kind of romance and friendship circles pulling you away sometimes, not just in the short term in August, but kind of bake it in a kind of like, oh, I'm doing so well financially, my career is taking off, but this problem with my romantic life, my children, some constraint with a fallen Venus here, fallen romance, fallen sexuality, fallen children, difficulties there, and difficulties up here with Saturn, which would be like, where have you had, hardship with friends and having to constrain or restrict those friendship circles. And maybe even this just means some very interesting structures around the earnings that you're making, because even though you're doing well, there are some kind of structural constraints. Maybe you're doing better than you thought you would, but the company won't level you up until you've been there for 2 years. And you're like, but guys, I'm doing everything. There's just a kind of constraint about the great gains of your career as well, even though your financial resources are increasing. Now, Jupiter rules your 8th house of inheritances, and it's possible with him across the way from that. Also, you may have an increase in your financial well-being through inheritance money over the next 2 years. Just keep that as a possibility. We've baked in a sun in the 4th house of the family of origin, and maybe perhaps inheritance from father figures may be a part of your narrative in the next 2 years. Now, this is a story for Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Rising, where you're having this synodic reset not seen since August of 89 and impacting you to summer of 91, returning to you again for another 2-year reset. Are you bold, confident, ambitious? Are you striking out with like a superpowered, like, confidence? Are you kind of like seizing the day? Are you a commander in chief? Because this is what the sky asked you to become in the next 2 years. You're lucky, you're action oriented, you're decisive, you're unstoppable. And in this unstoppability and boldness, you also must deal with the constraints of your career and reputation, and some difficulties to do with your domestic home life. With a Venus fallen in the 4th house, it may be a lack of joy, fun, play, and pleasure in the home. And it also could be a woman in the home, female in the home living with you, that could be a problem for you. Or with Saturn in the top of the sky, work is hard, love is hard. And by the way, you want to bust out. And you want to be big, and you want to be bold, and you want to be super successful. And by the way, what the hell do I have to deal with here? Home and career constraints. Now, Saturn is not bad in the 10th house, but he's always up like there when I see it in real life clients getting ready to retire. I'm the expert authority. I'm a master. I'm reaching a peak of expression, and I'm going to wind down now. I'm winding down. So it's like climb the mountaintop and then, beat your breasts at the top. I did it. Plant your flag. And by the time you get to 2026 and Saturn moves into your 11th house, a lot of you are going to, as Gemini rising, especially Sun and Moon as well, secondarily, retire out of one path or leave behind one path and begin to focus on something new. So he's a bit tired up there, and he's like, oh, I'm going to work hard and be a successful person, but I'm also getting ready to maybe phase out. So your bold ambition may be the last gasp, like finishing strong in your career, as you also have to contend with some challenges in your home that may be the home isn't as beautiful as you want. Your home life isn't as satisfying and emotionally rewarding as you want, even though for the next 2 years you are killing it in you being you and you being successful. And you can have international success, book publishing success, ninth house success, right? So it's so gorgeous for you. Visa success, legal agreements, and like judges awarding you favors. You're good for ninth house. You're good for first house matters over the next 2 years. All right. How about this? Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising. The sky is opening up a new button of starting over in a way you haven't done since August of 89 to 1991. You are resetting yourself in your 12th house. If you are spiritual, looking for God, want to spiritually awaken, liberate from the matrix, this is good. This is one of those stories. But if you're not up that in that alley, then you may move to a foreign country. It's very movie, like Mars here would be, I'm going to expat, move, travel extensively to foreign countries. Or you're really getting quite boldly ambitious and prosperous in things you're doing quietly behind the scenes, projects you're working on, or international foreign shore land income and revenue really being a really big boost for you. And this is like a lot of people today make money, okay? Make money in far off foreign shores and ways. They just literally allow you to, reach for financial gain outside of the constraints of your country. And that's possibly something some of you are able to do. The flow of this to Pluto can really level up your money from chunky money. That can be revenue from passive income, royalty income, money that comes through because you share that money with the publisher of a book, money that you get from stock investments, money that you get from inheritances. These are areas of thrival for some of you Cancers over the next 2 years, and also monies that you can acquire from and with your significant long-term marriage partner. Now, the tension in the sky for you guys says, well, Venus is saying, hey, there's some difficulty here, maybe with a younger sibling, a fallen Venus, a younger sibling may be having challenges, maybe health challenges, and they're kind of taking you down, dragging you down a bit, or you're having some difficulties with your neighbors or local neighborhood environment, not just around middle of August, I've got it queued for the 20th, but this whole thing's playing out the 14th to the 24th, but also in the next couple of years. And why are you feeling constricted or held back in the top of the sky in the ninth house? Maybe you want to travel abroad. Maybe you want to go back to university. Jupiter in the 12th often invites us to learn, and you're having constrictions about studying, university, college, travel, short distance and long distance. These are meanings of 3 and 9. And there are some difficulties here, even though things are going so well in your 12th house. Book publishing and writing projects, 3-9, also a place of challenge. Maybe, love is hard, but writing is hard. Venus is slogging away to finish a writing project, to find a publisher. This is where some of the challenges can be in the next couple of years. But nonetheless, for those of you looking for a spiritual awakening, you're saying no to traditional religion. That's what that square to Saturn is. You're finding your way through the mystical waters of Neptune. You want to awaken to unconditional love and to oceanic consciousness. And some Cancers will be opening into their spiritual life in the next 2 years. Now, I'm just going to pause the recording to take a hot sip of tea, and I shall return. All right, so we're going to get back into the sky and finish up your sign with this amazing conjunction, synodic cycle, reset button. All right, so Leo, Sun, Moon, and Rising sign. If you want to go back to 1989, maybe August of 89 to 91, you last experienced a reset button of Jupiter and Mars, bold ambition, confidence, fortunate action, even in your 11th house of great gains, where Jupiter is in his dignity because he has his joy house here. So Jupiter is very strong here, and you may have gone, Leos, through a period of great abundance financially from career paths. You may have had some dreams and wishes to be fulfilled. You may have made new friends that made you quite excited. You may have expanded your friendship networks and groups of belonging. All of that was exactly the vibe if you were alive back in summer of 89 to 91. But it's back again. It's got a little bit of a flavor that's different because of Pluto, for one. So this is reset your 11th house again, but also connected to your significant marketplace, audience, business partners, and marriage partner involved in this flow of power and reset for you. This could bring in wealthy, powerful, influential people into your life, Leo, that you also befriend or who become benefactors and allies and partners in financial wellness or business for you as well. Now, that aside, what about the energy here of the square to Saturn and Venus? Well, ultimately, Saturn is about boundaries. Saturn is about structures. And he's squaring from the house of your long-term money, your tax structures, your investments, your money you share with a spouse. It could also mean, just for some of you, please take this with a grain of salt. If you're already quite old and you're with your marriage partner, you're somewhat old, Pluto is like death, right? And this is shared assets with your partner. So some of you may become either widowed, divorced, or something like that in the next 2 years. And I'm sorry, astrology is about real life. Don't get to walk around worried that you and your 25-year-old boyfriend are going to go through this. But real life says maybe some of you will receive money through widowhood or divorce, okay? But it benefits you. But it's constraining your joy and fun up here in the 11th house because it's kind of a hard topic. And Saturn is a reaper in the house of shared resources, in the house of death, second from the house of marriage with Pluto. In your second house is Venus, and that's your kind of resources and your savings. And she's fallen savings, fallen resources, fallen financial wellness, fallen food style. You don't like what you're eating anymore. But this is an axis of financial issues. And some of your money stuff, Leos, can be, maybe in the middle of August, but more so as you look down the pipeline of the next 2 years, a bit of an area of challenge, of hardship. And, money is hard, finances are hard, Venus opposing Pluto, endurance and perseverance are needed. Yeah, you have this bold expansion of your career gains. So you may also be making a whole lot more money from that 10th house. Well, at the same time, some of the other factors, your savings, nest egg, your bank account, your inheritance money, your resources with another, are under a lot of intensity over the course of the 2 years that follow this conjunction. Ultimately, though, I would say that because, Venus is still a money goddess in a money house, she says, pay attention to the details. Literally get a bookkeeper, an accountant, start figuring out a budget for yourself, trying to figure out how to manage your finances. Because also Saturn could bring you an inheritance, and maybe you have to learn how to, especially from an elder, how to handle that money, how to parse that money, how to be careful with that money and not squander it. And you might be looking at the hardship of getting access to that money that has been bequeathed or donate or separation from a marriage. Maybe there's a lot of challenges in receiving that money, maybe because of just the process itself, or mediation. Exactly. Mediation too. All right. So that's just some stories. I mean, ultimately focus on the good stuff, right? Your 11th house, Jupiter and its joy, can really radically help increase your career gains over the next 2 years. And you might be getting bigger monies, higher levels of authority, more success in your career, etc. There will be a deep dive video into this with asteroids and stars and much more content to help you understand this. This is just a teaser. You might want to check it out. I'll be putting that content out closer to the middle of August. Virgo, sun, moon, and rising, you've got a reset button you last saw in August of 89 to 91 in your 10th house of career and reputation. If you were a child, how did you do in your school that year, those 2 years? If you're retired, what were you doing that got you lots of visible attention back then? And it's same if that's true for you now. Because Jupiter and Mars are at the top of the sky, people are noticing you be successful, bold, confident, ambitious. The people who are in charge of you, the boss, the people in your workspace, are cheering you on, giving you great oomph and power. So this is a career story for you over the next 2 years, and you guys are golden. You got the 4-leaf clover fairy godfather in the house of career, not just until next June, but also baking in a story of a 2-year synodic cycle of career and reputation success. So again, were you a child in 89 and you were alive? What were you doing that got you accolades in school? We might want to say that with the whole sign trine to Pluto in your 6th house of the archetypal energy says career, job, work, employer, employee stories, and career success guaranteed in the next couple of years. And Pluto means power and wealth as well. The square to Venus is you. You are dealing with this fallen Venus. You may not feel so good about yourself, like yourself. You may have some esteem issues. You may not feel you're beautiful or handsome right now, as this happens mid-August, but this can impact you over the course of a year. And love is hard in your long-term committed love. With Saturn opposite Venus, you're reaching a crucible in the middle of August that really could, August like 13th to the 23rd, really be a hard time for a long-term love. With a square from Mars, you guys could be ending a long-term relationship that has already been under a great deal of hardship. Now, if not, you want to progress forward in a long-term committed love story that has already felt like it's challenged, then you're going to do so with struggle. It's going to happen that you will feel like it's like, I have to grind in here, persevere, and work hard. End of story. Can you do it? Probably, and you may, because your career success and your work success may almost be like happening on split screen. And over here, this really difficult, challenging love story of committed, long-term, monogamous marriage type love. And this, duress from Saturn in the marriage house continues all the way through until 2026. And this conjunction in your 10th as a career applies for 2 years. So it's still a 2-year slog in a long-term committed love story. With Mars squaring Saturn, squaring Venus, this can be the fracture point in the middle of August or shortly thereafter of a long-term committed love story. Just a possibility, okay? Yet it also pretends your career may be succeeding, but your relationship life may be difficult in the next 2 years. Libra, sun, moon, and rising sign. The story is quite clear to me here. You are experiencing a Mars conjunction to Jupiter, not seen since 1989, in the 9th house of God. This is a spiritual, religious, spiritual philosophy place. It also as academic, higher academic environments, colleges, campuses, book publishing, and things to do with far foreign shores and entities. All of those are places of great prosperity, success, ambition, confidence for you in the next 2 years. And if you need to win at a legal matter and a judge in a court kind of setting, you're going to be fine in the next 2 years. And this is a start of a cycle that is happening in the middle of August. At the same time, you have a square to Venus and a square to Saturn. And the ultimate meaning of that, I'm going to go back closer to the imperfection of that. I mean, you're going to feel something like, okay, over the next couple of years, potentially, and also, of course, in the middle of August, you're going to feel something like you feel like your work, your job, your rental situation, your pets, your 9th house matters, your debts feel hard. And Venus in the 12th house can indicate some hardship in your bed pleasures, your sex life, your quiet, private home sex life. But also, Venus in the 12th house can be a woman, a female who is not your ally, who is your hidden enemy or not so hidden enemy. And even the 6th house can be the house of hidden enemies. So you may be dealing with kind of hidden enemy challenges, people undermining you in work or in love relationships. Well, at the same time, you're thriving in the 9th house. Is your book getting published and you're soaring to the top of the sky? Are you getting accepted at your favorite college? Are you academically successful in a university setting? Are you traveling around the world? Are you working in a situation where travel abroad is a part of the narrative? Because Jupiter is flowing to Pluto and Mars is flowing to Pluto in your 5th house. If you are at all an entrepreneur, and especially if your entrepreneurial endeavors take you into international territories, you're doing really well. Or you're doing really well regarding things to do with creativity and entrepreneurial businesses and publications, podcasting, 9th house matters, teaching. Some of you Libras look like you just really want to bust out. It looks like you want to travel, have adventures, go abroad, get a book published, source some deep power from your muse, inspiration, creativity. But there's a leg in the 6-12 axis. So work, pets, tenancy, rentals, and sort of like a fall in love story can be a part of the backdrop of all of this. Venus in the 12th house of addictions and self-undoing can indicate you're dealing with undoing your own undoing. Where do you find yourself falling into some kind of Venusian pleasures of the 12th that don't work for you, even though she's in the sign of Virgo, where she's not exactly all over her pleasures. You know what I mean? Hmm. She's like a nun or a monk. She's got like vows of chastity here or poverty, and those kinds of energies may be under the surface of your subconscious, and they're challenging you because you want to be bold, prosperous, and have adventures and do well. But oh, what are you dealing with in the sort of the unconscious part of your being and the past lives and the karmic vows you may have taken that are holding you back? Saturn makes work hard. You're grinding, you're grinding, you're grinding until 2026. And this grinding, grinding, grinding is at odds with this Venus pleasure lover, where she's foregoing her pleasures, her bed pleasures, her sensuality. She's kind of austere. And you're probably wondering, well, how come I don't have any of these pleasures in my life? And so it's up to you to find them, really. Hmm. Because with the chironic wound in the house of long-term relationship, there's been some wounding there in business and long-term love relationships that these eclipses are also trying to help you heal this year and last year. All right, let's go on to the next sign, which is Libra, sun, moon, and rising sign. Sorry, Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising sign. So the reset button in 89 to 91, August to August, is back, and you're resetting your prosperity, bold, ambitious, confident, seize the day, eighth house, chunky money narratives. Chunky money. Did you inherit money back in 89, 90, 91? Go back in time. Can you remember what was happening? What is going on in the eighth house could also indicate shared resources with a business partner or spouse. It could be chunks of money, like I just said, that you don't earn, investments in the stock market taking off. If you're old enough to remember, then this is back again. This is also like a bold financial confidence and success in those monies that are less about, you need to share them. A book publishing royalty, you share the money with the publisher, you share the money with your shareholder in a stock. You can have some major successes there, but not just mid-August, but in the next 2 years. Inheritance is included, especially inheritances with Jupiter. But also there is constraint or restriction or constriction to deal with at the same time, not just August, but maybe in the 2 years, to do with romantic love, children, fertility, and to do with friendships, large social groups of belonging, and the direct gains of money you are making from your career, being in a place of fall, a money goddess, you're in a career gains, your company downsizes, you get demoted, the financial situation from your work doesn't look as good as you wanted. And not just mid-August, but over the next 2 years. Remember that. And with Saturn constricting you, you're not having fun, joy, play, or pleasure. Things feel hard. Romance feels hard. Your children feel like a burden. Sorry, guys, this is just the area of challenge over the next couple of years. It can be at the split screen second, where like it's over here, you're doing so well, and you have to like work out this kinetic tension. You're literally looking like you're doing really well on the financial front and not so well on the joy, fun, play, pleasure, and social front. That's basically what that looks like to me. But I do like the flow from Pluto in the fourth to Jupiter, Mars. That's inheritance, legacy wealth, family of origin wealth for sure. This also may look like something to do with money coming through real estate, land, and property over the course of the next 2 years. And that's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm seeing. Let's move into the Sagittarius, sun, moon, and rising sign, Sagittarius. If you want to go back to 89, August to 91, then you're going to be back in a loop, a time loop, Groundhog Day, because we have the Jupiter conjunction to Mars in Gemini in your seventh house of business partners, audience marketplace from the 10th, clients, audience marketplace for your 10th house wares and shares, but also your significant long-term marriage type partnerships. And you had this beautiful energy here back in 89, and maybe some of you met your person, got married in the 2 years that followed, found a really powerful, robust partnership emerging out of that last cycle. It's back again. And it is indicating if you need to end a relationship back then or now, blessed endings, right? Ending with a grace and goodness and prosperity, or beginning one anew. And so if you're a single Sag right now, yay. If you're with someone already, just be careful. I don't know. It could end the relationship. Mars cuts and severs. Jupiter says bounty, prosperity, and goodness, blessed endings. But it's about someone else, really. And they may be going, your significant partner in business or love may be going through this prosperity, expansion, and growth themselves, and you are just watching them. The flow to Pluto in the third house can indicate travel with a significant other being a major theme over the next 2 years, or a new relationship that you come into because of a teaching, learning, or traveling environment that's Pluto powerful, wealthy, and dynamic and transformational. Also, a change of neighborhood may emerge in a positive way in the next year or two because of a relationship, and you move to a place, or travel and move to a place where you find a new moon, a new home. But that aside, we could also point out the tension in your career and reputation with a fallen Venus. And a fallen Venus may be about the relationship. Did you hook up with a married person and they had to extricate from their marriage in order to marry you? What could the fallen Venus mean at the top of the sky? Only the shadow knows. But you're dealing with some challenges in work, reputation, and career success. And at the same time, Sagittarius, you're also dealing with challenges in the fourth house of your family of origin, your mother and home, and elders, especially grandparents. You may have an elder in the home, difficulty in the home, alone and hard in the home, hardship in the home. And it squares the connection of the love and long-term commitment house. So why? You want to have a vivacious romance, but Grandpa Joe is living with you and there's no space for you and your partner. Or you want to be less alone at home and melancholic at home, and yet, shoot, your partner lives far away and you don't get to see them that often. And so you still feel home alone a lot. So there's some tensions in the career and home space, yet there's this blowout of goodness in the relationship space. And you must come to terms with this energetic differential. Not everything is perfect in the next couple of years from this conjunction, but many things speak to positive developments here. If you want to reach an audience or a marketplace with something you're doing in your career path, that's going to be very positive, especially if the stuff you do is writing, teaching, or social media online stuff. Thank you, Pluto, in the third house. All right, Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising sign. A sip of my natal tea. Well, first of all, Capricorn, Mars is your exaltation lord. You got a special vibe with him, and he's in your sixth house of work with Jupiter. It's work opportunities. If you are looking for work and you don't have work, then mid-August can bring in a job. But more than that, it's work over the next 2 years, being seize the day, bold, ambitious, confident, super full of power, super full of success, passion. Think something going on in a really exciting way. And the way this opens up for you is that you also get flow from the earnings house, savings house, resources, and financial wellness of the second. Ultimately, this is a powerful reset button for health and food style, and a reset button for money and work in, yes, August, mid-August, but also over the course of 2 years that follow. What happened in 1989 with the work story and the food style story, right? Because it's what you eat to be healthy. This is where you work. And this is the money you make, are the houses. What did change for you in 1989 to 91? Because the kind of vibing energy is back again. What about the fact, though, you got to contend with the square to Venus, the goddess of love in the house of foreign lands? Okay, maybe you got this great work opportunity at the expense of your love relationship, or, with someone in a foreign country, at the expense of your ability to travel far away to foreign shores, at the expense of your academic goals, at the expense of your book publishing desires, because work is where it's at and you don't have time to write the book. Saturn constricting you. But third house, ninth house is travel. Saturn opposite Venus is love is hard. I'd say some of you might end up getting some kind of work situation that separates you from a loved one, and work and travel keep you away from love. So love is hard. Love is enduring. Love is persevering. But you're also finding it hard because it's a fallen Venus as well. So there's some constrictions in long-term love relationships, storylines perhaps, or just love relationships, travel, educational situations. and siblings, younger and two older than you. If you have a sibling, one younger or two older, those siblings can be challenging you as well. Now, rental situations and home situations are changing. I mean, you look at that, this is rentals, this is Chiron healing the home wound. The sun is baking into the top of the sky during this time. The ability to buy a home, sell a home, move to a new home, rent a new home, rent out a home if you're a landlord. These stories are very much true around August, end of August, middle of August, but also thematically baked into the next 2 years. Lawsuits belong to Mars in the sixth house, especially squaring Venus. And so lawsuits and winning a lawsuit with judges and courts is an area of challenge, despite all of the positivity in the rest of the sky. Aquarius, sun, moon, and rising sign. Wow. Well, here we are. I'm Aquarius rising, and I can totally get this, guys. What happens is that we experience this reset button last seen in 1989, summer, August to 1991, in the fifth house of pregnancy, fertility, and children. Well, I gave birth to my firstborn son after this conjunction in 1989. Yes, he has got this baked into his natal chart. He was born in August, but energetically, it indicates for you, and that is in his 11th house, if you must know. This indicates for you an interesting time. Is it his 11th house? Oh my God, where is my son? Yes, no. My son baked Jupiter and Gemini into his 8th house. Wow, I don't remember that. But anyway, so last seen in 1989, what is it you need to do to reset your life here? How are you going to find a new direction in your money, in your love, in your romance, in your part of your life that represents things to do with your children, if you have children, or you want children? This is a Jupiter, I want to have children, and Mars is the ambitious drive and penetrating force to make it so, right? So this could indicate oncoming children, inbound children, whatever you want to call it, in your storyline. And if you do want to get pregnant under this, I think you'd be successful, or you or your partner. I do think that also having the squaring Saturn in your second house and Venus in your 8th house will indicate an increase of joy, fun, play, pleasure, creativity, entrepreneurial success, connection to your children, but also tension in your financial access. If fallen Venus in the house of shared resources, she's very practical, she's very detailed, but it could be about taxes, accounting structures, things to do with money you share with your significant other, business and love partners, being a little bit strained, and also strain coming off of Saturn in the possessions and financial savings and wellness. And so Saturn here says money is hard, and money endures and money perseveres. And all I could say about that is, how do you get this to persevere? How do you get this to really dig in for you so that you can keep this energy financially stable, because you're enduring, persevering, focused, not giving up. But you have a lot of excitement in the 5th house. Some of you may be creative, right? Write a book, write a project, do something. Some of you may find yourself highly engaged in romantic love, really full of passion, and new passion and romance is possible, especially baking in a sun in the 7th house, especially for women and looking for passionate romance, this being a very beautiful new love story, or fortify the one that you already have. You might strengthen the one you already have. The other thing about this is that this cycle opens up a window of time for financial luck. Jupiter here in the middle of August could mean winning money through speculation, gaming, gambling, etc. And there's just that, passionate drive and excitement for the competition required to win something. So lucky winning financially, or just lucky competitive and winning. These are the words that really strike a chord for you guys over the course of this August, but also in the 2 years that follow. You're a winner, basically. When you compete to win, you can win. And the flow of Jupiter, Mars to Pluto says power and wealth are yours. You are powerful, regenerative, wealthy. The richness of your identity is being transformed as you also experience the intensity of vitality, innocence, wonder, joy, and play that expands, grows, and helps you procreate, create, or co-create with the divine. This is powerful energy for sure. And, if you want to go back to 89, 90, 91, you were in that energy field back then. I can't remember the exact month in 89 that this occurred, but I will cover that in my deeper dive video. And then alrighty, what's going on here? Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Rising. A synodic reset button, last seen in 1989 to 91, resets you in home, property, land, real estate, luck, bounty, opportunity, expansion, growth, construction, moving to another country. Did any of you move abroad? 89 to 91. Did anyone build a home? Did anyone get lucky with property, land, and real estate matters? Did anyone inherit money from a family of origin member in 89 to 91? Who is a Pisces sun, moon, or most accurate, probably rising. This is back again. Definitely can serve you to have this conjunction here flowing to Pluto. If any of you wants to move your home to another country, and that could be extraordinarily successful in the next couple of years for any Pisces rising, especially, and moon secondarily, and least likely the suns, because the sun is about your career. Now, there is constriction and restraint as Jupiter-Mars is squaring off with Venus, problems in your marriage, problems with your clients, problems with your business partner. A fallen Venus bakes into the marriage house and unfortunately can suggest separation in a marriage and change of home because of separation in a marriage. If you are in a marriage, if you're not with somebody, don't worry about it. And also marriage type relationship. You are Saturn, sober, realistic, hard-assed, perseverant, determined, but realistic, sage-like, and wise. You carry that wisdom, apply it to changes in your home, bounty in your home, prosperity in your home. You apply it to eyeballing a significant long-term love relationship or business partnership. And the question is, do I want out? Mars squares that. Sure, love is hard, love perseveres, love endures, and maybe you're just done. I would say that Venus here in her fall does not bode well for a relationship that's challenged already. If you are a Pisces rising, especially in a long-term relationship where things feel really hard, this will not help that relationship. So it could be in the next couple of years, a breakup for sure. You want to, cut from the home. So you may be cutting out some stuff from your childhood that allows you to be more prosperous, more happy, more joyful by letting go of some of your childhood wounds, for example, especially in a trine to Pluto. Past life, ancestral, karmic, and childhood wounds are being healed and snipped and ended so you can be bounteous, prosperous, lucky, and joyful in and from your home. Your long-term marriage partner may be going through health challenges, and this could all be all this is. But Mars with a square to Mars, some of those can be quite sudden and quite difficult. And so if you're in a long-term relationship, what this may bode mid-August and maybe within the 2 years that follow is significant challenges with your partner in their mental, emotional, or physical health. And you might be tired of shouldering the burden and being the one in charge, being the sage-like, practical, responsible, dutiful, burdened Saturn. And you might want to release that burden by moving, ending, or severing where you live, and maybe severing living with that person, right? Change of home. It bodes a move. Did you move in 89 to 91? Go back and remember. Did you have a new relationship begin or old one end? If a new one began, it would be different. We didn't have the same sky back then. So it was really in 89 to 91 about where you live. That was really the story. Change of home. Okay. Thanks for listening, Sun, Moon, and Rising Pisces. We're now going to stop this thing. I'm going to have to try to edit the spot where I got up and got tea and walked around and probably talked in the background to my partner. You're getting this hopefully on August the 1st. I'm whipping it out on July 31st. From now on, every August the 1st, every first of the month, I'll put out an overview video of the month with the mundane astrology. And of course, I will always have the all signs out every month as well before this one usually. So those are available as we speak. So go check out your all signs videos. Thanks for listening, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Probably coming out after this one will be Mercury retrograde. And after that will be Venus in the sign of her detriment or fall. We'll cover Venus and Virgo. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.